everybody, it's the old Storyteller. You have to excuse me. I was just going to have my lunch. I was just going to have an apple. But you know, that reminds me of a story. Almost everything does as you tell. But don't you know an apple? Well, I can remember meeting a fella that y'all called Johnny Appleseed. And man, that old Johnny Appleseed, he was a good boy. Yeah, he was. He grew up in Maryland, and trying to think, I think he was born just right by the American Revolution and passed away just before the Civil War. So it was a long time ago, but for me it was just like yesterday. I can just remember it. Well, don't you know, Johnny, his name was John Chapman. Yep. Say it was John Chapman. And he was a special man. He grew up, as I said, out in Maryland way, I think is what he told me. And he just didn't like living there, and things were closing up, and the hunting wasn't any good, and people were moving in on him and crowded him, and he just didn't like it. Same reasons I keep moving on. You all know that. I mean, I don't like people. People always make it so crowded. Well, Johnny felt the same way. Except he had this thing. He really had a plan. Because Johnny was that kind of boy. At 22, he just seemed to be the smartest man I knew at the time. And he was good. He had a plan. He was going to teach people how to grow apples so that there wouldn't be any more hunger. And that you could always have an apple anywhere you were at and have something to eat. Well, don't you know, he just took off. He was a wanderer. At first he went with his brother, but his brother just didn't make it, and just didn't like the same kind of life, so he went on home, and Johnny just kept on going because he felt it was his mission in life to spread the word about apples. And let me tell you, he was one special man. Yep. Do you know, he just was a time when he'd speak out where people didn't, because he was a good man. And if something's wrong and you know what is right, you ought to speak out. Well, that was his theory in life. And him and I always had the same problem about one thing, and that was we were colorblind, which caused us to be different than most people in that day. See, especially Johnny, when he looked at an American Indian, he didn't see color. When he looked at a black man, he didn't see color. When he looked at a white man, he didn't see color. And he didn't look at anybody with any color in mind. Because he knew it was what was the man or woman was what they were. And he spoke out. He said they ought to abolish slavery long before they did. And here's one for you. He was a vegetarian. Yep. And he was a advocate for vegetarianism. Yep, he'd tell everybody to keep you healthy and keep the animals more healthy, you bet. And it saved the world. See, his big thing was, as he was wandering, he was telling everybody, you have to take care of the nature or it won't be here. And he was right. He was right. He even said that vegetarianism would help the climate. And he was right about that. Now we all know that in science. So, he'd come out, and where did he learn all this? He's only 22. And then I found out, well, he's almost as bad as Grandpa Ken. He'd wake up in the morning and start reading, and he'd read about agriculture and planting products and crops and how to make different kinds of apples. And he was just a reading son of a gun. And that's where he got most of his knowledge. And that knowledge about nature and all the things that he believed, everywhere he went, from Maryland out to Washington, he let people know what he thought was right. And that made him a good man. And he went to church. And he did fine things because he believed we all ought to help each other. And we all ought to do good and have fun in life. Well, what you know, everybody knows old Storyteller loves to have some fun, but I sure don't ever like to make the story at the end be no surprise. So I'm here to tell you. I think you ought to go to that Giggle or Google, whatever you call it, and punch in Johnny Appleseed, because there's a book, I think it's about Fantagraphics.com, something like that, that tells everything about Johnny. Good and different. Because sometimes the things old storytellers like me tell, they just sometimes get a little mixed up in my old head, you know what I mean? And that book, it just tells you the way it is. Well, I gotta go take a nap. When you're my age, you take a lot of naps, you know. So, kiddos, come on back. Remember, go to the library. Read a book. That's what you ought to do. Read a book, Johnny Appleseed, and read about anything that catches your attention, because that's how you learn. See y'all. Be safe. Grandpa Ken told me to tell you, say hi. Bye.